What's up, vapors? Thanks for checking out Daily Vape TV. My name is Nick, and it's Fresh Build Friday. That's right, it's that time of the week again where we get you ready for the weekend with a brand new coil build. Now, I know I say this a lot, but I have something very cool and very unique for you guys to try out today. For all you Goon owners out there, you definitely have to give this build a shot. This is a continuous strand build for the Goon RDA. Now, this is really one of the only RDAs that you can do this build on because of the unique clamp design that it has. So I'm not going to tease you guys anymore, so go ahead and grab your mod, your wick, your addy, your wire, your tools, all that good stuff. Let's go down to the close-up view and build it up. All right, guys, so here is my Goon that we're going to be building on today, but we're not going to need that for a little bit. Let's just go ahead and get started with making these coils. I've got this Mad Rabbit 24 gauge stainless steel wire that we're going to be using today. However, you can choose whatever type of wire you want. This build will work with pretty much anything out there. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab about a foot of this wire here. I like to leave my leads a little bit longer, I suppose, just because, just in case I need it, I guess. But I do tend to waste a little bit of wire. I'm not even going to lie about that. So one thing you're going to need is a 3mm bit size. That's the bit size that we're using today. So I've got the coil jig here from Coil Master. I'm going to leave my positive lead a little bit extra long. So I'm going to put about 1.5 to 2 inches right through the actual first leg there. And I'm actually going to be using the other part of the jig today. I'm not going to be wrapping it by hand. So let's just go ahead and do 8 quick wraps. Bring that lead all the way back around. And now we're just going to do our 90-degree bends that I normally do. And this is kind of the tricky part here. I mean, this first bend is not too difficult, but it's definitely going to get a lot more difficult from here on out. But if you just stick with it, I think you'll be able to manage it. Honestly, the first time I did this build, I screwed it up, but the second time I did it, I nailed it no problem. But yeah, you just want to work on getting those bends just right. Once you get your first bend in there, go ahead and take off that coil. And we're going to straighten out the positive lead on here and just flip the coil around. So actually, your bend is actually going to be facing the part where you grip onto it. And we're actually going to do another 90-degree bend here, double 90 degree, I should say, because we're just going to bend it 90 degrees and then leave a little bit of a gap. And usually what you want to do is just kind of measure it between the posts with a nice fresh build deck on the Goon there. But I pretty much got this one down so I can kind of eyeball it there. And let's give you a quick look at what we got so far. So that's what we're working with right now, and we're looking pretty good. So let's just continue on with this build. So when you bring your Goon back in, you just want to lay that coil right over the device there, and we're just going to measure how far it is from one side of the post to the other, and you got about 1/8 of an inch to play with there. So what I normally do is I just like to pinch it right there where I'm going to make my next bend, and I'm just going to take my pliers and do another 90-degree bend there. After you do this step, you're on your way to the next coil, and this is basically what we're looking at so far. It looks a little bit funky right now, but honestly it'll make a lot more sense in just a second here. So I'm going to match this on the opposite side, so we're going to measure that amount of space. Again, I would say that's about another 1/8 of an inch or so. So we're just going to pinch it once again, and it definitely helps if you have 2 sets of pliers at this point, but I find it's not too hard with just a single set. So there we go. We have our next bend, and it's already starting to kind of form what we're looking at. It doesn't have to be super duper clean right now. I'm not looking for, you know, the perfect build or anything this second. We're just going to clean it up afterwards. This part's a little bit finicky because you got to grip it just right in order to make your next wraps, and especially with this extra lead right here, it gets a bit difficult. But basically it's kind of like you're wrapping a sleeper coil. You're just going to wrap a piece around and then tighten it up, and then just repeat that process until you get another 8 wraps on the other side. Now it may look like a spaced out mess right now, but honestly this thing will clean up really nice once we put it on the Goon, and you'll see that in just a second here. Now the last little step I'm going to do is just make another set of 90-degree bends, and then we got the install portion. Alright guys, so as you can see here, I have taken off the little bar sections that clamp down on the wire, and that just makes it a hell of a lot easier to install these coils. So You can pre-trim the leads on these things if you really want to, but honestly, I like to have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to installing them. So what I'm just going to do now is just kind of place my coil, and I'm going to get one of those little bar sections out, and we're just going to trap one of those pieces of wire. This can get a little bit finicky because you're working with really tiny pieces here, so just be patient with it, and hopefully you guys have steady hands. I do not have the steadiest of hands. I drink probably way too much coffee for that, but I'm just going to try to line it up there, and we'll get it close. Oh, see, we're already having issues. Okay, so there we go. Just take it off again and try it again here. Oh, once you get it lined up a little bit, then it becomes a lot easier. You can just kind of start screwing one in there and the other one. Just make sure you're not accidentally grabbing your wire too early here. So just kind of screw it down about halfway to position your coil. Just make sure you're nice and even here. And just like that. Then you want to just take your coil and position it how you like it. Make sure it's got a nice even amount of room on both sides so that the coil has plenty of room on both sides there. You're not accidentally bumping it up against one of the posts. So that looks pretty good to me. Let's just go ahead and bring our other clamp in here real quick. Man, sometimes I wish I had 3 hands. It would just be a hell of a lot easier. I'd be able to do these builds in no time. And again, you just want to position that coil just how you like it here. So we're just going to leave a little bit of room on this side, a little bit of room on that side. And we're looking pretty good. We're almost there. This is really crucial that you get a nice even amount of room on both sides because you don't want one lead longer than the other. So just take your time with this step here and just kind of slowly clamp them down just in case, you know, you got to adjust it ever so slightly. You don't want them too close. You don't want them too far away. You want it just right, you know. So just take your time with this step and you'll get it no problem. All right, so here's where we're at now, and the hard part is over. So now we're just going to go ahead and grab our other piece of wire here, the leads, and we're just going to spin them until they snap off. Usually it snaps nice and clean if you have everything good and tight. So let's just go ahead and wiggle these. There you go. See, just like that, snaps right off nice and clean. And that's a sure sign that you have your wire in there good and tight. So just repeat that process again. Now, obviously this coil is pretty darn ugly. So what we're going to do is just lift up on it real quick, and when we start giving it some heat, we can definitely get that coil to even up a little bit and match the other side here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a battery in this thing, and we'll throw it on the rouleau and meter it out. All right, guys, we're good to go to give this thing some heat here. So let's just go ahead and see where we're at resistance wise. Just giving it a quick pulse, it looks like we're at 0.16, and I just noticed that I have 9 wraps per coil here, but no big deal. Honestly, it's still a nice low resistance coil, and it's still safe when using a 30 amp battery. If you're using it on a mech mod, or if you're using it on a regulated mod, it should be safe as well, as long as you have something with 2 or 3 batteries like the rouleau here. So I'm still going to just run with it here, so let's just go ahead and give these a quick pulse fire. And one thing I want to do right off the bat is just squish this coil together and give it a little bit of heat here, so hopefully we can get that nice and tightened up and tuned up as well. We want these things firing nice and evenly. And I'm just going to barely hit it with any heat as of right now. I just want to do little quick pulses just to even out these coils a little bit. And hopefully let this one cool down a little bit more, and it'll tighten up real nice for us. And and wouldn't you know it, it's firing up nice and evenly. That coil turned out pretty nice. It's still a little bit spaced out, but honestly, it's not really noticeable. There's just a tiny bit of play to it, but honestly, I'm just going to leave it just as it is. As long as everything's firing up nice and evenly, this build is pretty much as pretty as it's going to get right now. So as you can see, everything's firing up pretty much evenly. Just doing a few little minor tweaks here, and then we're going to be good to go to wick it. All right, guys, it's wicking time, and I just have to give a huge shout out to the people over at Native Wicks. They gave me a buttload of cotton to use for my Fresh Build Friday series, so thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everything you've done for me. Native Wicks, really good stuff. I've been using it for the past couple of weeks now, and it's really good, clean cotton. You get no break-in time, no bleach flavor, no chemical taste whatsoever, and it lasts a long time, so I'm really impressed by it. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a little chunk, and let's go ahead and wick these coils. Alright guys, so I feel like you should know my wicking technique by now, but one thing to note is that I really like to leave a nice air gap underneath that coil so the airflow gets in there, goes underneath the coil and comes right up through the chimney. Also, I tend to rake my cotton nowadays. I rake it through both sides and then I trim it off a little bit extra just to get any loose fibers out of there. It kind of keeps a lot of the clutter out of the deck and it thins out the ends, and I feel like that does make a difference. So never stop, experimenting with your techniques and just kind of learn new things along the way, and hopefully you guys learn something from these videos and everything like that. That's really my main goal, is to teach you guys something new, hopefully with every single video. But let's go ahead and take a look at some performance here. The final resistance is 0.16. I'm vaping it at 90 watts. Looks good to me. Let's go back to the main screen, have a quick vape on this thing, and we'll talk about it some more. Alright guys, this is the portion of the video where we talk about the build that we just did in this Goon RDA. Now my first category, as always, is the heat. The heat on this one is very much tolerable. Now that's hard to say for me because I'm used to Mad Rabbit being a scorching hot vape, especially with a 24 gauge, very low resistance build such as this one here. But this one is very manageable. Honestly, I kind of attribute that to the airflow. I'm using it wide open on the Goon and I'm absolutely loving it. I am one that likes a nice warm vape, but not a scorching hot vape, and this is definitely satisfying all my needs in that department there. And my second category for today is the ramp up and ramp down time. Now the ramp up time is pretty quick on this, and I definitely think that has to do with the stainless steel wire. If you're using Kanthal, it's going to be a lot longer on this build, so build appropriately. I feel like if you're going to be building it with Kanthal, I would take off maybe 2 wraps. If you're going to be building it with Nichrome, maybe just take off 1 wrap and you should be okay. Honestly, I was planning on doing an 8 wrap, but it ended up being a 9 wrap. No big deal. I matched it on both sides, so it ended up all good in that department. But let's go ahead and take a puff real quick and we'll check out the ramp down time. So I'm experiencing about a 2-second mild ramp down time, and I can definitely see because of the heat on this build, it's not too hot, so therefore the ramp down is not going to be too aggressive. I took it off of the Rouleau because I feel like if I was vaping it on a regulated device, I'd be using it about 100 to 120 watts, and that's just going to make it a little bit too hot for my liking, and it's going to increase the ramp down time as well. So I put it on the mechanical device. It is metering at 0.16 ohms, which is perfectly safe as long as you're using a 30 amp battery, which I am. I'm using a Sony VTC4 in this thing, which leads me to my next point, which is the difficulty of this build. The difficulty on this one can get a bit high at some points, but honestly, any experienced builder, especially if you're used to building continuous coil builds, such as like a sleeper build or something like that, you're going to be able to do this build no problem. I really find that it's a little bit easier in some semblance of the word because you could take off the little clamps and then just place your coil, clamp it on there, and then boom, you're pretty much done at that point. So honestly, after you get everything all worked out with the bends and all that stuff, centering your coils, it's pretty easy from then on out. It's just like any other build. So my final category, the one you've all been waiting for, is the flavor on this build. The flavor that I'm getting is intense. It's a very whole, dense, in-your-mouth type of flavor, and the juice that I'm using is Bad Juice by The Standard. That was given to me by Save Your Vape. Thanks, Lonnie. Thanks, Meriwether. Really appreciate it. But the flavor is a blood orange pound cake. It's very light and refreshing on the inhale, and a nice dense pound cake, desserty kind of note on the exhale. Very true and accurate. Really love the flavor that I get off of stainless steel wire, so I highly recommend you use stainless steel wire for this build, but if you don't have access, Kanthal or Nichrome will work in a pinch. But anyways, guys, that about does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you try it out if you have a Goon, and don't forget to check out next week's Fresh Build Friday video, where every single week we bring a brand new coil build to your screen. Anyways, guys, make sure you leave comments in the box below of what you think of this build, whether or not you want to try it out for yourself, and if you do try it, let me know what you think down there. Of course, check out the advocacy links I have in the description. Make sure you stand up and fight for your right to vape. Of course, check me out on all my different social medias. I have Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you follow me on there. Like my page on Facebook. Check out my Snapchat. And if you want to give me a couple of bucks on Patreon, that would be awesome as well. So thank you guys very much. I just want to take a quick second and thank you all for allowing me to hit 9,000 subscribers. You guys are the best. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, vape on.